Okay, hello. Welcome to Subscribe or Die. We were a bit worried earlier because we thought there wasn't going to be anyone in here, but you all came in a rush, so thank you. Hopefully we're going to be interesting and engaging. And I am going to leave space at the end for questions, so please think of something to ask us. This is your opportunity. This panel came out of a conversation that I had with Anna Keim about a year ago, where I'd recently returned from Australia and discovered an interesting thing about theatres there, which was that rather than operating on a single ticket structure, many of the major theatres in Sydney operate subscription models and provide seasons, which is a fantastic way to develop audiences and trust, and also to experiment, as well as kind of create buzz around your programming and launch of the season and themes running through what you're doing. So we had a conversation about how that might translate into cinema, and also I was aware that Cineworld were doing their unlimited card, which again I'm hearing from audiences is something that they really want, but something that seems to be a massive barrier for venues. So I thought, why don't we do a panel about it and see if we can solve some of these problems? And I was really gratified this morning to hear Anna Odell say, don't answer audience questions with industry problems. So I'm hoping that this panel can be an opportunity for us to think about risks that we might want to take and think about the value of trying new ways to communicate with audiences, even if sometimes they don't work. Which isn't to say they always don't work, but how do we progress if we don't take risks? So I'm rambling. We've got 3 different organisations here across 3 different art forms who've all done something interesting with audiences. So I'm going to hear a little bit from each of them, and then we're going to have some conversations about audience development. I'm going to let you introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Marianne, and I'm from the National Theatre of Scotland. I started at the National Theatre of Scotland about 10 years ago as a marketer and then audience development, and now as a producer. So I've been in audience jobs for my entire career. The production that I was talking about, Home, that launched the National Theatre of Scotland, I started working with the company more or less that weekend, and the very first thing that I did for NTS was have our graphic designer do a prototype for what the loyalty card would be for everyone that took part in Home. There were thousands of people that took part, and there were thousands more as audience members, and my big drive 10 years ago was to somehow keep those people and build that relationship and make them part of an NTS family. That prototype is still sitting on my desk, because what I quickly found out that subscription or loyalty card or any kind of loyalty scheme was at that point impossible for the National Theatre of Scotland. So I think a lot of what I was talking about this morning was about what you do with what you've got, and a huge part of what I've learned working for a touring company with no base and no home is that there is no point beating your head against a brick wall about what you can't have. I'll not lie, loyalty and how we build relationships sometimes slips down the agenda for the National Theatre of Scotland, and we're approaching our 10th year and we're really now starting to think about it. The first while for a company is getting ourselves on the ground and getting the shows on stage or into the spaces that we're producing them. So we're thinking about loyalty slightly different, and the incentives that we can offer our audiences in a slightly different way. So we work with theatres, venues, festivals of every shape and size, literally from the back rooms of pubs to the West End stage. Trying to fit one scheme into that, as I say, is I can't see the way of doing that at the moment. But we do work with a lot of theatres and festivals who do subscription schemes to varying degrees of success. I can cheerfully answer, we're not dead and we're not dying anytime soon with no subscription. What is interesting is about how you nimbly work your way through that, because what you want at the end of it is much the same result, is a loyal, devoted audience who you have a two-way relationship with. I can talk a bit about how we've tackled that now or later, probably later, but that's where we're coming at it from. Yeah.
I'm Phil Dove. I work for Light Cinemas UK. We have 3 cinemas already, and we're opening 4 next year. I come from a background of hotels and restaurants, and I was invited to work for Light Cinemas to engender great customer service, to recruit the staff and to make sure that they stay working for us. That's the ideal. We recently purchased a Cineworld cinema in Cambridge, and so it fell to us to continue their loyalty scheme. The Infinity card is our version of the Unlimited card, and based on what we've learnt about it, we've decided to take it to our other cinemas in New Brighton and Wisbech and everything that we open from now on. So I'll be happy to discuss that with you later on.
Hi, I'm John Summers. I run the Halley Orchestra, which is based in the Bridgewater Hall just over the road. And I thought it'd be interesting to give a perspective from my art form, which is music, because a lot of it's relevant to, I think, the conversations you've been having. We've been running subscriptions since 1858, so for us, it's an old game. And I'm sure that some of them are still coming. But the serious point about this is that we, as an organisation, need to earn a lot of money at the box office. We need to earn over 70 concerts in the Bridgewater Hall. We need to earn 1.7 million. 20 years ago, about 40% of that audience came through subscription. At the moment, it's 30%. So subscription, and that, in a way, in all art forms, that traditional subscription is dying. But my argument is that actually, if you get it right, subscription is where the game could be at. Our segmentation through audience analysis and direct marketing is changing things, and we realise that we can reach different markets very quickly and cheaply now through new media, which we couldn't do before. It relies on two things. One is the data being right. In other words, you've got to know the people you're targeting at, and the programs have got to relate to that data. There's no point actually putting on stuff that people aren't going to come to. Equally, the people who come to things might dictate the program. Just to give you an example, this week, at the moment, there's a concert that's just finishing now. One of three in the what we call our Opus series. 3 concerts doing exactly the same piece. Is about 4,000 to 5,000 audience over 3 events, 60 grand's worth of income, at an average ticket yield of 19 quid. And most of that is on a fixed subscription. About 30% of it's on some sort of subscription or other, but a lot of it is actually through that route. Later on this week, we're doing a family Christmas concert. That's completely sold out, but at a much lower ticket yield because we're targeting that at families, and there are family packages. Next week, we're doing a more esoteric program, which will play to about 1,400 people at a ticket yield of over £20. But of those, 40% will be on subscription, but over 200 to 300 will be on the 3 quid student offer. So what we're trying to do is actually work out what product we've got that actually will interest people, and actually dovetailing the two. I've just been asked to speak about one thing that we did, which I think is kind of interesting in this context, and I'm going to run a little presentation, and I hope it doesn't take too long. Could you just run the presentation? I knew it would work. Help. That's it. Okay. This is the Bridgewater Hall, and you can see people coming into it. This is a concert we did called Classics Classics. We decided to do it because we had a blank date. It cost us about £7,000 to hire the hall, so we can't kind of forget about those. And we used it to try a new kind of concert, and as far as I'm aware, no one else has ever tried one of these, certainly in the UK. And it was sold entirely through new media. The tickets went in 5 hours, partly because it picked up a lot of media interest. But it was fundamentally 10 pieces across the whole spectrum of classical music, nothing dumbed down, all serious stuff, that played to about, as I said, nearly 2,000 people. That's what we sold it as. We used lots of linking stuff. We used little videos. We used linking stuff to tell people what's coming up. It was deliberately done to not be patronising, because old people like me can be, and something like the Halley can appear to some people rather austere. The whole point was to bring in a new audience. We invited people to tweet, put up stuff while they were actually in the concert. They could come in, take drinks, they could walk in and out. They didn't have to stay for events. They knew when pieces were going to start. And this is, I'll just play you one of the things that we did. This is a piece by Ligeti, who's a very contemporary composer. can see there are no gimmicks. We're playing it straight. A lot of people gave, and the idea was that people would give either during the concert by text or afterwards. And actually, what's interesting, I'll show you about the stats about that in a minute. But we got a lot of comments. We got a lot of people coming back to us. I won't run this video because it takes too long. But this is the stats on it, which is quite interesting. I don't think. Can you read that? You can. So I won't go through it. It was a completely new audience to us, particularly, and the demographic of that audience was quite, for us, very, very wide indeed. Lots of young people. You look at that average donation per person, actually it's a little bit higher than that. People paid on average just under £5. Remember that our normal ticket yield is nearly 20. So actually, although it was packed out with lots of different people, in terms of income, it was a bit of a disaster. If you look at the next one, shows you where they came from, and that's also interesting. If you look to the extreme right, over 6 to 8% people came from more than 2 hours away. So this wasn't an instant decision. They actually came because they targeted coming. That's how they gave. People gave on the night. They gave through a Just Giving website, which actually they could do on the night or otherwise. So actually that, for us, what this is about is trying to find a new audience and a new way of reaching them.
Fantastic, thank you. Can I just ask you quickly, did you have any sort of suggested donation, or was it completely free?
No, because part of it was we wanted to find out what people thought it was worth.
Okay. And did you have any outliers? Did you have any larger donations, or was it all?
Yeah, I mean, some people gave, a couple of people gave a couple of £100.
Yeah.
Mostly because they thought it was a good thing to do. And what we're now trying to do is develop a dialogue with these people. We've got all of their email addresses. We did a survey immediately post the concert to ask them what they liked about it, what they didn't like about it. And depending on their likes, we're now starting a dialogue with them, trying to get them to come back, and eventually trying to convert them to subscribers.
Yeah, fantastic. So I think when we spoke before the panel, one of the things that we were talking about was that taking risks can give you a different value to money, and what you've just said completely proves that you had 80% new people and that you have dialogue with them. And I think, Phil, we spoke about that when you first took over Light Cinemas. Did you do a consultation, or did you try to get rid of the card? What was the reasoning behind keeping on the subscription scheme?
Well, bluntly, what we found was that our market position, when we were running the cinema without it, and obviously you've got factors, i.e. people thinking the cinema's closed and things like that, but we were positioning around 140 in the country, whereas the standard position for that cinema was 83. Since we've begun to do the scheme again, it's now back up to where it really should be, which is around 85 in some weeks, but hitting around 95 in the country usually, which is good for us. So that is a very basic measure of the impact that the scheme has. And I think an important part of the scheme isn't just the subscribers coming to support you, but it's making sure that you're effectively this cinema of choice for them and their friends, because they've got a real incentive to come see you. And I think it was important, something that John said there, there's not any point in putting on something that people are not going to come and see. And we would like to have a very diverse programme. But what we do find is it's difficult to get the message out and get people prepared to come and support something that is a little bit further left of centre than mainstream. But we find that these people who are subscribing to us are really keen to engage with something that is specialised film, I suppose, and they want to, and we can give them the ability to find out about that film early enough. Now, it's very much an aspiration at this stage, because I think we've had to retreat on our programming based on what we found in sport this year, but we've got very exciting plans, and we feel a responsibility to those members going into next year that we have to diversify our programme to maintain their interest, and it reduces risk.
So if we go back to this morning and the concept of everything, everywhere, all the time, you've got a new obligation to your subscribers to continually offer new product.
Yeah, and I think more importantly, we have the means to get them to hear what our messages are about those things. We can advertise a documentary and we put it on Facebook and we send it out to our mailing list. But unless you're tuning into that medium to find that, it's likely to miss you. And we tried some bits and pieces and they were woefully, they're disastrous. But what we're finding now with the Infinity scheme is that these people really want us to be doing that, and they'll come and tell us what they want, and they're helping to inform what our programming choices are. and they're making it automatically successful because they can fill up something, and it's not really a risk to them to watch it because it's paid for already. So it means that the other 20 or so people that are delighted to see that on aren't the only ones in that auditorium too. I do think it's a work in progress, but I can see huge potential and development for that already.
Fantastic. And I think one of the questions that people are probably dying to ask you, I know there was some no-go areas, was has moving over to a subscription model limited your choices or affected your relationship with distributors?
I would say it's been a long negotiation with our distributors. I think that they are supportive of us, but it is a tough negotiation with them. I think there isn't necessarily a cohesive view amongst all the distributors about how they feel about it. I think some are very, very positive about it indeed, others are more reticent. But I do think that I do think they're broadly supportive of what we're doing there. And I do think that obviously, Vue and Odeon are both doing their own scheme, trials of their own schemes already. So I do think it's something that distribution are going to be aware of already and be in long-standing talks with the kind of mainstream competitors that we have.
Yeah, it's something that I think we can all see wider industry going down that road. I want to widen it out a bit because I'm aware that we've got 3 different art forms and 3 quite different models, so I think getting into some more theoretical conversation might be good. We've talked, both of you, about the bottom line and sustainability and the need to attract new audiences. But one of the things that you've mentioned to me several times, Marianne, is access and kind of reaching young people. And I'm just interested in your thoughts or your learning on how we square that circle of the fact that young people are quite risk averse actually, and often they don't have any money, but we need to meet our bottom line, but we're also all not working just driven by the dollar. So my question is, what do we do about that?
How do you be everything to everyone? Yeah, it's an interesting question that we try and answer year on year actually, and our findings show that our audience is predominantly female and 45 to 55, all that kind of stuff. And I remember the very first time I presented those figures to the artistic strategy meeting at the National Theatre of Scotland, and the kind of shock that went through to see that hard fact. And everybody knows it, everybody knows that that's who the theatre audience is, but to see that that's the case, the instant reaction to that is to change programming and to make work that we think will appeal to younger audiences. The actual way to do that is ask young people what work might appeal to younger audiences. So we get there eventually, and we do that by having a team of young advisors who sit a lot like a board and to influence programming. And that really, really helps. So our kind of success story is you make a stage adaptation of Let the Right One In, you have John Tiffany directing it, and you have Jack Thorne writing it, you're going to get a whole load of young people in who really, really love it. It's as basic as that. Other things that you can do that we have tried, we've taken over venues before where we've said that young people can programme, that they can help us run a theatre venue essentially. And we tried that, and what we found is, yeah, young people come, they mostly come in groups organised by somebody else, and they definitely don't come at the weekend. And the other thing that we do is got those rows thing that I was talking about when we focus on the back row. We've got a scheme called First Nights where we just bring young people who have never been to the theatre before and give them a really good night at the theatre. So most of that involves us subsidising young people coming with the hope that they have such a good experience that their journey of theatre being one of the options that they might choose when they're deciding on what they might do with their time, that it becomes part of that selection choice for them. That's really, really hard. And when we think about audience development NTS, it's generational we're thinking about, and it's hard to track, and it's hard work to put in, investment to put in when you know that actually you might not see the results of that for another generation. And not to bang on about it, but it is hard without a venue, because what attracts people a lot of the time is the venue. And I was talking to Anna's niece, lives in Manchester, and she was saying she comes to home. She's 16, and it's the only place where she buys media is to come to the cinema at home, and that's something to do with the film, but it's almost everything to do with the venue and how you feel about that and that relationship. So being one step removed from that as a company is quite difficult. So it's quite hard work that you need to do, and it mainly involves dedicated projects and schemes.
Okay, fantastic. I'm going to bat it back to John, just in the interest of equal representation. What did you find? Where have you gone after your findings of there is an appetite from young people for music, but they don't want to pay for it?
Well, because they're the audience of the future, and I think that's the same for all art forms. For me, you've got to invest in the long term, not just in what you do, but actually how you approach people. So this concert I'm talking about that's happening now, you could pay 40 quid for a top ticket, but you could also, if you're a student, you can pay £3. So it's less than the price of a pint. And we're getting now, because we're finding out better how to talk to them and what the tone to use and actually how to get to them. We're actually finding that often we get as many as 300 or 400 turning out for a concert. So, but also we've got a massive education program which reaches about 50,000 kids a year. We have whole parties of school kids coming in, having a relationship with one of our players and coming in to hear concerts. So basically, I think all you can do is you can plant a seed, and if they like what we're doing, they'll come back, and if they don't, it's great to have the experience. The thing that kind of fascinates me about, in the context of what we're having now, is that if you go to a concert, or if you go to a play, things can go wrong. It can be different. We're doing this concert 3 nights this week. It'll be different all 3 times. But a film is a film is a film. It's the same thing. So it seems to me that actually we're all after the same thing, which is the shared experience. What's unique about the arts and what's unique about cinema? Because soon the technology is going to be so good that actually you'll be able to see it in your living room every bit as good as cinema. It's about people coming together and sharing experience. And for me, the future of audiences at all level has to be in tapping into that. What is it that makes people want to come together? What is it that makes them want to enjoy things, discuss it? So actually, one of the things about this concert, which wasn't a gimmick, but it was to get people to talk about what they just heard. So we left gaps between the music. So we deliberately, and we should have stuck up a slide that said, "Now talk about it." Because actually, if we've had an experience together on a film or anything like that, the first thing you want to do is talk to somebody about it. And actually, we're not catering to that enough. I don't think cinema caters to that enough, actually. I mean, I come here a lot as a punter, and it strikes me that what's great about coming is not so much seeing the film, the quality of the sound, and all the rest of it, but it's actually about walking into a building that feels warm, welcoming, you enjoy the ambience, and actually get to talk to people who like what you like. And I don't think the arts generally does enough of that.
Sorry, I just wanted to add the 5-minute theatre thing that I was talking about earlier. We just use the live stream channel for that, and when we go live and it's on, one screen has the theatre showing, and underneath is a chat box. And one of the biggest things that we learned was people really, really want to talk during theatre. It was just people's fingers like that, and the chance that they could talk to the artistic director of the company might be sitting in the chat room as well. And I don't know what to do with that in terms of live performance and how you facilitate that, but it's a definite thing, and something I understand myself. I'm in a night out with friends. It's actually a little bit annoying when you have to stop talking because you want that dialogue to keep going. So yeah, it's an interesting place to be.
And it's also becoming a bit of a nut to crack for cinema as well, because it feels like we're going down 2 paths. You have some cinemas that are turning their programs into more and more event-focused programs, which then attract a higher cost. And then we also have an expectation from audiences of unlimited content for free whenever they want it, and us kind of going down that route as well. So I'm wondering, Phil, if you've looked at ancillary, I guess.
Well, I think that something that John said there is actually very important. It's about the experience you have when you come in, and what you're really asking when you're talking about investing in the future of children and all that sort of thing. You're really asking parents to make an investment in that as a viable day out for their kids, and they want them to be safe. They want them to be, age checked, and I think cinema did itself a very awful disservice over a long period of time for withdrawing a good level of customer service from it. It became synonymous with people, being victims of bad behaviour. you know, underage children being in the screen is spoiling it for everybody. And I think that, you know, moving away from that is absolutely crucial. And part of that is our relationship with parents and demonstrating that, you know, customer service is something that we give to everybody, no matter what the age it is. You know, we look at it very much from a sort of restaurant point of view, which is child-friendly during the day, maybe less child-friendly during the night because the children aren't in there at night. But, you know, we are a real child-friendly kind of restaurant environment, almost in terms of our customer service and the way we aspire to give that. Parents know that their children will be age checked, so they're not going to be in an inappropriate film, and we support the parents to make sure that they know how old their children are and those kind of things, and we work hard in those kind of relationships. And I think that parents understand, therefore, it's a good value day out. And no part of this is about being a cheap day out, which I think is different from value. But if you are looking for something cheaper, then we keep films on for a long time, for instance on Saturday and Sunday mornings, and they're £3 a time. But we keep, it's not just for tots and children, we're putting on films which are up to, you know, 12A and 15 on occasion, so that people can have an independent day out, which really is pocket money films. And I think that means that people are seeing themselves as users of the cinema in their own right, but that their parents think, yeah, my children can go to that venue because of all the things I was talking about, and it's that level of trust again. So, you know, you might not necessarily like the films they're watching all the time. You know, they'll watch good, bad and indifferent. But again, that's part of the cinema experience, and I think it was said earlier on, you're not supposed to like every film you see, but because the children are coming more often, they are seeing good, bad and indifferent, and they're beginning to actually judge it on that basis too, which is great, and it's an independence.
And can I ask you, as an independent venue, how...
Becoming less so.
Becoming less so, okay, so that's where I was going, which I kind of did with my earlier question as well. What's your feeling or your remit for specialised film or holding people's hands into taking riskier choices? Okay, so
I think that one of the benefits we have of having a lot more cinema, say for next year, becoming a portfolio of 7, becoming a portfolio of 11 in 2017, I think that does give us the ability to strengthen our relationship with suppliers and distributors and that kind of thing. But I do think that one of the strengths of our business model is that we recognise that we have to have a local voice that is able to make decisions on a local level to deal with a local audience, and that is immediate to them. And we feel that everything in terms of the website, the staffing, the programming should have a very strong influence from that particular cinema. So we are centralising some elements of programming, so the obvious things like Spectre and Superman versus Batman, you know you're going to take that. But we have regular programming meetings with all of our cinemas to make sure that what the feedback from their customers is telling them is heard and is on their programme. Otherwise we feel that we're not going to actually get the message across. And New Brighton, for instance, has very little in common with Wisbech, had very little in common with Cambridge on that score. And we think that Bolton will be completely different again, Dundee will be different again. And it should be.
Yeah. So you're offering a safe space and a communal experience, but possibly not so risky content-wise at the moment.
Yeah, I think that there was only a risk if you haven't got the audience in, but if you can say that you are going to do something and people are definitely going to book up for it, there's no risk. And it can be as exciting as it wants, really. I mean, we're prepared to do the exciting stuff, provided it's supported.
Okay. And how long have you been running the Infinity programme? I think it was quite new when we first spoke.
We started it in May in Cambridge, and we have just launched it in New Brighton. So we have our first 200 subscriptions in New Brighton. It's been running for 2 weeks. So it's been technologically horrendous. Okay. It's just been a nightmare. Because Cineworld they built their own loyalty module. We bought one off people, and we're the first really to use it in this country with all of the ways that our tax systems work, things like that. And we are the test bed for it. Okay. Now, we've had to do that, but it hasn't been enormous fun, but we're there now, so we're happy.
And was that part of your negotiation with distributors?
No, nothing to do with that. No. So.
Met the need?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring it back to a wider question again, which we spoke about, and I think maybe was discussed in the previous panel, which unfortunately I didn't attend. But when we spoke prior to meeting here, we had a conversation about price and the perception of value and what dropping the price does to your established audiences and whether there's any knock-on effect there. So I remember, John, that was something that you brought up.
Yeah, I mean, it's a simplistic statement, but the interesting thing in this country is that we tend to equate price with value, much more so than the Americans do. They won't, in America, you can price something cheaply, but people don't necessarily think it's crap, whereas here we tend to do that. So price actually can say something about what you do, and that's in some ways is a problem. So I think what we're trying to do, we're doing a lot of dynamic pricing, so that when things are going well, we tend to now to advertise a base ticket price and say tickets from, so that if things start to move up, sell well, we push the price bands up, we push the tickets up, and equally we go the other way, so we push it down. We're not using it very inventively yet, but I think it strikes me that in cinema, and in particular in long-run theatre, I'm sure that that's got to be a way forward, because the truth is, when you've got something that's a hit, you need to maximise it, because funding isn't going to go up, and while you can actually create the volume, you need to actually to benefit from it. But at the same time, make sure you've got the access schemes so that people can actually join in the first place.
Absolutely. I think being able to be flexible is something that doesn't exist in theatre at the moment. Certainly on I don't think I mentioned this earlier on, we do around 23 productions a year, and if a tour sets off, we put in income against that budget, and that's predicted income working with the venues. If you suddenly find that you have a hit on your hands, being able to adjust that pricing model would be so helpful for everybody. Everybody benefits out of it, but what you end up finding is it's just rigid, and you haven't really maximised. So we're not thinking nimbly, we're not on our feet enough, but that comes back to that buying in of a system.
It's terribly, I don't know, because technologically it's really easy to do.
I mean, thinking of the last tour that I worked on, Our Ladies of Perpetual Succour, which was a big hit. We probably worked with, it was a big run in Newcastle, and then like a tour, probably 6 different box office systems, and one of them being the Fringe, which is 2 or 3 different box office systems. So setting up a kind of system, I can see why it's difficult, but I think you're right. I think we need to be more dynamic.
I'm going to disagree with my colleagues on the panel. View and Odeon have got a blockbuster premium. They charge an extra £1 to watch Spectre. They charge an extra £1 to watch anything you want to watch, basically. That's popular. And I think that the perception that, by speaking to my customers, that's the most incendiary thing that they find in cinema. We don't charge booking fees, we don't charge 3D supplements, we don't charge extra for a good seat in a certain place in the cinema, and we don't charge extra for blockbusters. And again, it's about us getting return visits on that basis. The price that we charge is just the price that we charge. And I think that with cinema, where people have a relationship that they'll maybe visit it, I think maybe the average is 4 or 5 times a year, but I think some people go more regularly than that. I think it's due to that particular relationship that cinema has. They don't expect to be hit by those hidden things. Now maybe if it was up front, that they advertised that the price of Spectre at the point that you are looking at that is £1 more expensive, that could be a big departure. The fact that it's added on afterwards, I think the way that cinema does that is what's incendiary to people. It's like having a taxi journey that you see the meter and then it's like £5 more. It makes me crazy.
Well, they do that now.
I know. It makes me crazy because I think, why not just write it on there? I can see it.
I think it's an interesting thing is that you would never remove the incentives for people to book early, and I think if you're able to, and then you're able to push people in a direction almost don't be caught out when it becomes a hit because getting early and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know.
What's the feeling?
Because the only complaint we get is when it goes the other way, when we've actually put a concert on sale, and because we're dynamic pricing, we move the prices down, and then we've got someone paying £30 for a seat who's sitting next to somebody who's paid £40.
Yeah, you get the ticket offer. I'll just wait till the last minute because they'll get the £5 ticket because it's not selling.
When you go to Ryanair or EasyJet, it's the same thing. The principle is actually trying to maximise your income when you can take it. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But for me, it makes commercial sense.
But there's a difference between cinema and the music and the theatre example, which is you guys have slightly more control over the product, because you're creating the season and you're running the orchestra, whereas you're buying a fixed
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
artifact. And interestingly enough, EasyJet did try taking over a cinema in Milton
they were a
Keynes, which I
disaster.
don't know if anybody knows. They took over a multiplex that now is slated for demolition, and they tried to do Easy Cinema, and it completely failed because the distributors just said, no, we don't work this way, we don't want to work this way, we're not going to do it. Times are changing.
It will be interesting to see what audiences say if dynamic pricing becomes. I know a lot of the venues that we visit are using dynamic pricing, and if it becomes if it becomes an issue, then yeah, we'll just.
You see, I think the interesting thing, if you compare it to an airline model, is about capacity. You know, all of us have empty seats. We don't like to admit it, but we all have empty seats, and that's unrealised income, as far as I'm concerned. The dynamic pricing model on airlines is often, because they know they're going to fill the seats anyway. For them, it's how do they fill them most effectively. So there's a slightly different argument. But I would say, you know, if you like, tickets for £3 per student. For us, it's audience building and it's generating a little bit of income. So I think you've got to be clever about it.
Yeah.
But I don't have a problem with the principle.
It also pays for the cheaper tickets. If you can get that high-end price for people who don't mind paying it because it's a really great show, the demand is there. It also frees up that cheaper end of things, which is what we all need.
Yeah,
So
I like
you're
that
gonna
you
ask-
say you don't have a problem with the principle, because I have to admit that I still have a slight uncomfortability with it, because you want to believe in the theatre, the spectacle, the event, and the way that you feel, and the fact that you're not just buying products from the supermarket that have passed their sell-by date.
I think the theatre and music is on sale for longer as well, isn't it? So it has a chance to establish its pattern, whereas we're only on sale, I think, for 4 days before, unless it's a big hit, and so we don't have the same lead-in time. It is slightly more complex.
Yeah. I'm aware that we've got 15 minutes left, so I'm wondering if anyone has any questions. And also, I forgot to mention, we do have the Slido code up there, so if anyone is too shy to ask in person, I'm going to have a look at it on my screen and ask any scary questions that no one wants to be singled out for. But we've got this gentleman in the middle.
We've really got now 3 different sectors of the arts represented there. One that doesn't have its own theatre and has problems with coping with the various box office systems that it comes across wherever it plays. One cinematic model, and the concert hall model, where in a sense you've already got dynamic pricing because there will be different prices in different parts of the auditorium, and in a sense you can tweak the model by repricing seats at various times according to what the demand is. There's another model which I've come across which applies to music venues, which is the model down at King's Place, which is behind King's Cross in London, where you can pay in advance for a ticket which will cost you £9.50, which is about a 2/3 discount on the standard price. And you can go along on the day and you'll get the best seat or seats available for that £9.50.
Yeah, we do that model as well.
Yeah. But, I mean,
The
the
trouble
other...
about that, there's a real issue with that in large capacity halls. It's because we found a lot of our people who are astute know which concerts aren't going to sell out. So rather than paying 20 quid for a ticket, they'll wait till the day and pay 10.
Yeah.
So actually that costs us money.
But it's building the market. It's expanding the audience. The problem you've got is the problem that we had in our cinema with the Orange Wednesday promotion, which was it was the same people that would have come and paid for 2 tickets were just coming with 1. And the other advantage that the Bridgewater Hall has got and the Symphony Hall has got is that there's no concert equivalent of a multiplex that's going to be dumped across the road from you.
Yeah. But I do think, I think the concept of this building really fascinates me in the way that, we differentiate our audiences through the product we do and the way we approach the audiences. So we do probably 4 or 5 different sorts of concerts aimed at probably more than that, different audiences. But when you've got a somewhere like Home, actually you could see how each individual cinema could have a slightly different profile to attract in, because there are people who are passionate about cinema who want to see edgy things. But actually, if you've got 5 cinemas, you can actually program, it seems to me, and I'm completely naive in these matters, that you could program to actually try and get their loyalty to a stream of work that you're actually deliberately promoting.
Yeah. One thing that hasn't been mentioned is membership schemes, and this came up at the last cinema meeting I went to, and everyone said, oh, what a good idea, but we haven't quite thought of it yet. I mean, this is a way of, you can use it in cinemas, and you can reduce the cost of buying a ticket, you can eliminate the any surcharges for booking online and things like that. Is this a model that's being used by anybody else on the panel?
Sort of like picture house membership schemes. I think we're all aware of them, but we wanted to look at different ways of pricing tickets that go beyond what everybody already knows exists. And again, it came out of several conversations that I have outside of the world of film, which I think is good to bring into this kind of environment. Again and again, I talk to people I know who don't have anything to do with film, who say, I love cinema, but it's too expensive, or I love cinema, I've got a Cineworld Unlimited card, I go all the time. But I never hear anything in between the two of those things, other than my colleagues saying, I saw that at a press screening, I saw that at an industry screening. The person next to you has a question.
Hi. I was just wondering how much you actually charge for your subscription, and if you have an average number of attendances. I mean, obviously, it'll be slightly different for John than Phil, I guess, because you have a certain number of shows. So if someone joins your subscription scheme, do they get to go to every single show? Is that?
We have various subscriptions, two complicated, and just two I'll highlight. One is the concerts I'm talking about now, Opus, which is a very, very old model, and it's a pyramid selling model, and it's brilliant. It works. If you want to be an Opus leader, and you brought 10 people with you to each concert, you get your ticket free. And the bigger the group gets, the bigger the discount. So if you get an Opus group of 50, they all get 30% discount. So they go around all their friends and say, look, if you join us, we're all going to get 30%. And that's been a fantastically successful model. And we have groups that come from literally 2 hours drive away all the time. But the rest of our subscriptions now are on a basic, if the more you book, the bigger the discount you get. What's really interesting is that traditionally people who are my kind of age and older are discount junkies. They'd rather see a high head ticket price. They'd rather see 30 quid ticket price at which they're getting 20% discount than they would see the lower ticket price. And it's completely illogical, but actually we've tried it both ways and they absolutely love the discount.
What about you?
We charge £16.95 for our monthly subscription, and you can go and see any cinema film within that. We don't, so things like National Theatre, Royal Opera House are separate from it.
And do you know how many people you get coming on average each month? If it's a monthly
People tend to use their card on average 3 times per month.
So it's not too bad in terms of...
We'd like them to come. I mean, we'd like them to come more often. Because I think people are worried about it being overused, and I think there is a tipping point in that. But these are bringing friends with them. They're spending money. They're using the bars. It helps us to sustain a different environment. We can animate, use versatile spaces, put on things that we like to do. Everyone else looks at it, sees something going on, and it makes the whole place more attractive. So it's good.
And it's guaranteed recurring income as well.
It's guaranteed recurring income.
And I was going to say, do you also then pay £3 back to the distributor? Is that?
Our negotiation isn't the same as Cineworld.
Okay.
What is your negotiation?
I can't talk about the
Questions in the bar,
yeah.
right?
I can't talk
Not
about
on
the
camera.
negotiation with the distributors. I don't think they allow that in a public
Pay per
forum.
ticket?
Yeah, we have a redemption price per visit, and that's agreed with the distributors. That's something I can say.
That's 2 individual distributors after one.
Correct. Yeah, that's correct.
So it sounds like there's a business opportunity for software that can make that problem easier, right?
Well, no, the software exists. It's making it work.
Right.
That's all. Fine.
I'm surprised though that the average is 3. I would have thought it would be a lot higher.
I think people think it will be higher as well, but then how many films are made or released in a month that people really en masse want to go? I think I'm talking to an audience here that probably goes to cinema very regularly indeed, whereas I don't think that most people do go to cinema very regularly indeed, and I think that a lot of our subscribers are people like want to go 6, 12 times a month, but I also think there's a lot of people who just say, I'd like 3 family nights out and I don't want it to cost an arm and a leg. and it makes it worthwhile. Effectively, they're getting 1 free visit in 3.
But is there also, I mean, the thing about this place that strikes me is that actually there are lots of people who would rather be seen to be coming to the cinema here
Yeah.
than they would be going down. So there's a loyalty to the idea as well, which
Absolutely,
actually
yeah.
are buying. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my gosh, lots of questions.
Hi, this question for Phil, just carrying what you're saying. What informed your decision to expand your subscription base now from Cambridge to your new cinemas? Was it purely financial, or was it down to data analysis from people attending certain films, or things like that? Or was it just purely financial?
No, I don't think it is. I don't think anything, if you're going to do it purely financially, I think you're looking at it maybe the wrong way. I think that we can see that there will be a long-term financial benefit. It's very front-loaded, so we're not going to see any benefit from it for a substantial period of time. However, the feedback we've had from our audiences since we opened in New Brighton is, can you please do this? And the enthusiasm that they've greeted it with, we've done a real soft launch for it because of the buggy technology side of it. And in spite of it making it actually quite difficult to find out about, we've already got 200 people signed up. We're going to do a big launch of it, and we expect that to grow very, very quickly indeed. And that's really why. Now, a lot of these people are coming anyway, we think, 3 times a month. But actually, I think and hope that they'll now come 6 times a month, because I think that they really want to. And like I say, I just think that it gives them golden handcuffs. I do not want them going to View and Odeon. I do not want them going anywhere near those places. And I'm very jealous about that. And I think that this is a way I can make sure that they never will. They have no reason to.
In the third row, if you just wait for the mic.
Wouldn't it make sense to know who all of your individual customers, ticket buyers are, so that you can then have develop a relationship with them, find out what they like, find out when they're coming back, find out how much they enjoyed, what they saw.
And that's absolutely crucial to that. It's probably something I haven't even touched on yet, but these people who are our members are our loudest voices, our biggest supporters, the people who champion us in society, who give us the most feedback. They really do give us feedback, and they always have. These aren't people who are sitting on the sidelines and being quiet. They're always in touch with us. This enables us to make it easier for them to give us feedback, to talk to us more often, to really try and get involved, and, I think importantly, guide the direction of the cinema in terms of making the programming something that they participate in and actually have a say in and become stakeholders in. That should make the scheme thrive. I don't think it thrives without that. I think it does for Cineworld because it's so much bigger than we are, and it's about price. I don't think someone as small as we are can compete with Cineworld unless we add extra value to it, which is voice.
No, I was going to agree. I think we spend an awful lot of time analysing our data, and every time someone comes to something we put on, we that's a lot we use Tessitura in quite a sophisticated way. But the thing that interests me, and I think in lots of music organisations, it's probably, and we don't do it as well as we should, it's actually the programmers who should be looking at the audience data, not the marketeers.
Yeah.
Good point. Okay, second row. Oh, you're going up there.
I'm
We
going
had
up there. You've
somebody
had your
down
hand
here.
before. This way,
I know. We'll come to you, I promise. Got my eye.
In live music festivals, clubs, it seems to be completely ubiquitous now to have the early bird and the super early bird ticket. Do you know, has anyone tried this with cinema?
The sliding scale.
Yeah, it's like if you book it a week in advance, you get it cheaper than if you buy it on the day. And you get this feeling of like, it's selling out, I need to buy tickets.
I think that the film I would try that with would be Spectre, whereas people are booking early for it, are happy to pay full prices. The incentive is that they get a good seat, really. So the films we put on sale in cinema really early are the ones we know are going to be hits. Otherwise, they kind of go on sale maximum, really, I suppose, the week before, don't they? I mean, that's pretty much what we're doing. Star Wars has been on sale, I think now, it feels like all year. And people aren't, worried about getting it cheap. They're just worried about getting their seat. Spectre, I think, was similar. But Lady in the Van, I think we only had that on sale the week before, but we let people know about it early. So I think with cinema, it is a different thing in terms of how long it stays on sale for. So it is a good point. It's interesting.
Yes, you've got your mic.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, I'm interested in what John said about conversations that are happening in spaces like home and your concert hall, and how really as cultural organisations we can play more of an agency role within this idea of curating conversations, making them more visible. And then there's an interesting project that happened this year early on with a number of venues from the BFI Film Audience Network that tried to do that, and it delivered some really good results in adding value really to what distributors were doing in terms of marketing, really capturing what people are interested in talking about. And I was wondering whether you've had any experiences of actually doing that beyond the work that you put on, whether you tried a little bit like the readers group, book group movement, you've tried things along those lines.
Yeah, we've tried it, and actually, I went to one at the Royal Exchange, and because it's not my art form, I felt completely intimidated by it. And I think one of the problems is because we work in a kind of specialist environment, and let's say our music director, when you put him on a stage and you put him together with people who are afraid of asking what they think are idiot questions, actually, it's not the case. A response by someone to a piece of work of art, which is uninformed, is often has as much of interest about it as someone who's supposedly an expert. But I think creating those dialogues is different. We have a lot of kind of pre-show stuff, but if I'm honest, no, we don't. And I think, I talked about this earlier. Actually, when the technology gets so good that there's got to be a reason to go to a cinema, and soon technology is going to be so good that there's got to be something that drags you out through the door, through the awful traffic system of Manchester, on a rainy night, and it's got to be about that shared experience. It's got to be about the peripheral stuff. But I think it's got to be fundamentally feeding on this basic desires of human beings to be together and to discuss things. And that means that you've got to put on product that gets people to just talk about them. You can't just put on boring, mundane stuff, because actually they've got to in themselves, I think, engage with it. And I know we're perceived to be an old, stuffy organisation because we've been here a long time. But I promise you, what I think about more than anything else is trying to do things in a different way, to reach a different audience, to get that audience to talk back to us, even if to say we're shit. It doesn't really matter as far as I'm concerned.
I wonder, is it not too much to worry about the curation of it, but to be very, very open to the fact that it might happen, and probably does happen round about the work that you create. There's been quite a lot of instances where the National Theatre of Scotland conversation has sprung up in the most unusual of places, and we've never written a strategy about that. We've never sat down and put a budget line against it. You just try and facilitate it and be part of it. It normally involves a bit of good humour and relaxation about the whole thing, and it normally happens where that conversation would happen anyway, rather than you leading on it. But that's not to say that leading on it shouldn't happen. I think it's being aware that it's probably out there, the potential is out there.
I shouldn't have used the C word, I realised as soon as I said it. The curation word. I meant more that idea of capturing peer sharing. So when all those people came to your concert and you were saying, I wish I'd captured more what was happening around it.
Well, we captured a lot, and what we've done is we're investing a lot of time and effort in talking to them over a period of time. And actually what it showed us was that there are people who are interested in what we do who we didn't think were. And what was the barrier? The barrier was price. And the barrier is perception as well. But we asked the audience to behave badly, and they did. They behaved really well. It was really, that we said you can drink as much as you like. And apart from one guy who had 5 pints in the first half, everybody else stayed in their seats. So it was really disappointing, that was it. I was hoping they'd talk and things, and they didn't.
But this does seem like it's a natural extension as well to our kind of perfect model of subscription and a static audience and an audience that builds that you're engaged with. It feels like once we get this right, then you naturally change from being yet another content provider to being a space for performance and conversation and collaboration and all those things that people go to venues for.
What people respond to more than anything else is the integrity of what you do things. I mean, people might not like classical music, and they might not like cinema, but actually if you do it with conviction and don't try and dumb it down and don't try and turn it into something it is, people will respond to that. I really fundamentally believe in that.
Just for everybody on the panel, I think someone's posted a question to you to say that are cheaper tickets for young audiences, so by that we mean sort of under 26, successful in engaging them in your art forms? Do you find that works?
Well, yes.
Are they coming back?
Yes.
How do you know that?
Because we track them. We know that. But interestingly, we did some research a long time ago about one of our audiences, our Opus audience, and we found that 60% of those people had come to a Harley concert when they were kids. So 30, 40 years ago, because typically, you know, whether we like it or not, and hopefully it'll last a long time, we're all growing older, and the audience is growing older. So there's nothing, in my view, to be shameful about attracting an old audience. We know for sure that actually, and this is going to get worse as people get broker, because my kids are going to be less well off than I am, because that's the way things are, is that you tend to come when you're really interested, when you're young, and then you tend to go away from culture. Every survey shows this. You have kids, you get a mortgage, you can't afford a thing, and then you come back when you're in your 40s and 50s, and that, for me, is the long-term game. But you can't do that unless you plant the seed when they're young.
Absolutely. So that's all we've got time for. I just wanted to end with a question for each of our panellists, which is, well, I'll give you a choice. You can either tell me what you think is going to happen next, or you could give me your utopian ideal of what you'd like to see happen next.
I'm really hoping what I say, somebody doesn't go, that exists already, for God's sake. It feeds into what a big thing from somebody coming from my perspective, and it's about relaxing about data. And this notion that that's our audience, that's your audience, get your hands off. And there's walls between each audience and nothing can be shared. And for me, if we all just relaxed about that as venues, as companies, as sectors across the board, what I would like to see is that I could have in my purse a loyalty card that would get me benefits across the board, so that I could, in Glasgow, I could go to the GFT and then go to the Tron and then go and get a burger and be rewarded for that activity without it coming up against the dunt of, you know, we couldn't possibly do that because that would involve systems talking to each other.
Okay, so collaboration, good.
I would honestly like to see an end to 3D in cinema. For me, I can't watch it, it makes my eyes hurt, and I can't understand why anyone pays extra for it.
And all those pairs of 3D glasses that we all have hanging around.
It's an art installation.
I think for me it would be a real acceptance by everyone that rich cultural life of this country is so important for everyone, not just the people who go to it, and that actually making sure that in the future that people realise that actually getting out of their houses and coming and sharing experiences is the most fundamental human emotion that we experience, and we need to expand it.
Fantastic, thank you. I think that's a great note to end on. Thank you to the panel.